Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story.
Alright, we're doing it a little bit late for Wednesday. We're gonna get done. We're getting done quickly. Well, not quickly, but you know. I just had to post it. So before all that, we're gonna have a food race because I don't know. I couldn't think of a race that matches this topic, which is Larry King. And all I know is that he had a talk show, and he was very popular at one point. Are you ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. Alright, let's see. There's One Day, Let It God, Amboys, Peach, Jerry, Ace Base, Moon, Adventures, Skull, Pete, Butter Roll, Lakeshore, Sandra, Tracy, Betty, Jerry, Jason, Generations, April, Mike, M&G, Chico, Afield, Scully, Carnival, and White Girl, Mike, UC, Phoenix. Let's see, there's Gallivanting, Rural, Moon, Unseen, Marketplace, Crazy. Oh, 757. She made it. She did it. All right, so 755. I said 757 earlier. I'm so sorry. 755 is one of our artists. Certified acrylic and music, skilled in songwriting, resin, and airbrushing. She does a lot of painting, a lot of art, lots of fun things. Here's some regular channels, Art Squad Coloring Book. We've got some shorts, which are some beautiful pieces of art she's done. And Lives, which is what I catch usually, where she does art. So check her out, like, share, comment, and enjoy the video. Alright, the bearded historian is going to tell you about a person who was once an interesting person. A bigwig in his league. Yes, I don't know much about him, but he was an interesting fellow, a big name in television,
broadcasting,
thing.
Radio, TV, author. Well, our buddy today that we're going to talk a little bit about is a guy named Larry King. Most of you have either heard of him, have listened to him. Sadly, he's no longer with us. But here was a guy that interviewed over 50,000 people on television and radio. That's a lot of people. Interestingly enough, the guy also was married 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Could stay happy with one lady. Had 5 kids, born and raised in Brooklyn. Interestingly enough, his parents immigrated to the U.S. from what is now Belarus in the 1920s and studied at the Lafayette High School, public high school in Brooklyn. During his career, he'd also appear on television series and films, usually playing himself, and he remained active, interestingly enough, until he died in 2021. He had awards and nominations, including 2 Peabodys, an Emmy, and 10 Cable Ace Awards. He also was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the 32nd Annual News and Documentary Emmys. Now, he got his first real big start on Miami radio and television with CBS. A production supervisor, James F. Simmons, suggested he go to Florida, which was a growing media market with openings for inexperienced broadcasters. King would go to Miami. After initial setbacks, he gained his first job in radio at a small station WAHR in Miami Beach, and they hired him to clean up and perform miscellaneous tasks. When one of the station's announcers abruptly quit, he was put on the air. Now, his first broadcast was May 1st, 1957, working as the disc jockey from 9 a.m. to noon. He also did 2 afternoon newscasts and a sportscast. He was paid $50 a week, which probably not bad money back then.
Probably not.
He acquired the name Larry King when the general manager declared that Ziegler was too difficult to remember, saying it was too German, too Jewish, and not show business enough. Minutes before airtime, Larry chose the surname King, which he inspired from a Miami Herald advertisement. He suffered King's Wholesale Liquor. Within 2 years, he legally changed his name to Larry King. Well, King began to conduct interviews on a mid-morning show for WIOD in Pumpernickel's restaurant in Miami Beach. He would interview whoever walked in. His first interview was a waiter at the restaurant. 2 days later, singer Bobby Darin in Miami for a concert that evening walked into Pumpernickel's. Having heard King's radio show, Darin became King's first celebrity interview guest. I always did like Bobby Darin. Now, King's Miami radio show brought him a lot of local attention, and a few years later, in 1960, he hosted Miami Undercover, airing Sunday nights at 11:30 p.m. on Miami television station WPST-TV. Well, King credited his success on local television to the assistance of comedian Jackie Gleason, whose national television variety show was being taped in Miami Beach beginning in 1964. That show really took off because Gleason came to Miami, King said in a 1996 interview he gave when he was inducted into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. He did that show and stayed all night with me. We stayed until 5 in the morning. He didn't like the set, so he broke into a general manager's office and changed the set. Gleason changed the set, he changed the lighting, and he became my mentor to me. During this period, WIOD gave King further exposure as a color commentator for the Miami Dolphins of the National Football League during their 1970 season and most of their 71 season.
Yeah?
Well, on December 20th, 1971, he was dismissed by both WIOD and television station WTVJ as late-night radio host and sports commentator.
Oh, dear.
Following his arrest for grand larceny by a former business partner, Louis Wolfson. Other staff covered the Dolphins game into their 24-3 loss to the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl VI. King also lost his weekly column with the Miami Beach Sun newspaper. The charges were later dropped. King was later rehired by WIOD, and for several years during the 1970s, he hosted a sports talk show called Sports a la King, featuring guests and callers. Now, in 1978, January 30th, King began hosting a nightly coast-to-coast radio program on the Mutual Broadcasting System, inheriting the talk show slot that had begun with Herb Jeffco in 1975 and followed by Long John Neville in 1977. King's Mutual show rapidly developed a devoted audience called Kingaholics. The Larry King Show was broadcast live Monday through Friday from midnight to 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. King would interview a guest for the first hour, with callers asking questions that continued the interview for the next 2 hours. At 3 a.m., the Open Phone America segment began, where he allowed callers to discuss any topic that pleased them, until the end of the program when he expressed his own political opinions. Many stations in the Western time zones carried the Open Phone America portion of the show live, followed by the guest interview on tape delay. Now, some of King's regular callers used pseudonyms or were given nicknames by King, such as the Numbers Guy, the Chair, the Portland Laugher, the Miami Derelict, and the Scandal Scooper. At the beginning, the show had 28 affiliates, but eventually rose to over 500. King occasionally entertained the audience by telling amusing stories from his youth or early broadcasting career. Wishing to reduce his workload, King began hosting a shorter daytime version of his show in 1993. Bohannon, King's primarily fill-in host, took over the late-night time slot, and after 16 years on Mutual, King decided to retire from the program. The final broadcast of the Larry King Show was heard on May 27, 1994, when Mutual gave King's afternoon slot to David Brenner, and Mutual's affiliates were given the option of carrying the audio of King's new CNN evening television program. After Westwood One dissolved Mutual in 1999, the radio simulcast of the CNN show continued until December 31st, 2009. Now, Larry King Live, this is the one most of you folks know about, started up in June of 1985 to December 16th, 2010. It was hosted by Larry King, network's most watched and longest running program with over 1 million viewers nightly. Right on CNN, a 60 minutes running time period. Primarily, it was aired out of the CNN Los Angeles studio. The show was sometimes broadcast on the CNN Center in Atlanta, from the Time Warner Center in New York, or from Washington, D.C., where King had gained national prominence during his year as a radio interviewer on The Larry King Show for the Mutual Broadcasting System. Every night, King would interview one or more prominent individuals, usually celebrities, politicians, and business people. The one-hour show was broadcast 3 times a day in some areas, and is seen all over the world on CNN International. On June 29th, 2010, King announced that the program would end, and the final episode would air on December 16th, but a new episode on the war against cancer aired 2 days later on December 18th.
Oops.
King would be replaced by Piers Morgan tonight, a talk show hosted by the British television personality and journalist, not even in the same boat.
I think I vaguely remember him, and he tried.
Yeah.
He gets points for trying.
For
but he didn't have the personality
Uh-uh.
or the charisma.
Right.
Those are kind of the same thing, I guess, but never mind.
It says Larry King mostly conducted his interviews from the studio, but he also interviewed people on site in the White House, their prison cells, their homes, and other unique locations. Critics claim that Larry King asked soft questions in comparison to other interviewers, which allowed him to reach guests who would be adverse to interviewing on tough talk shows. His reputation for asking easy, open-ended questions made him attractive to important figures that wanted to state their position while avoiding being challenged on contentious topics. When interviewed on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, King said that the secret to a good interview is to get the guest to talk about him or herself and to put oneself in the background pool. A 1996 interview on the Washington Post saw King note that he sometimes slipped hard questions in between softballs. King prefers one-sentence questions. In interviews, King also proclaimed that he prepares as little as possible for each program, does not read the books of the authors he interviews, admitted that the show was not journalism but infotainment. He said that he tries to project an image of earnestness and sincerity to each interviewer, and the format of the show, King in suspenders instead of a suit and tie, sitting directly next to the guest, reinforces that. In response to the softball question accusations, King says, "I've never understood that. All I tried to do is ask the best questions I could think of, listen to the answers, and then follow up. I've never not followed up. I don't attack anybody, that's not my style, but I follow up. I ask people who say this, what's a softball question? They'll say, you say some movie star, what's your next project? To me, that's not a softball. To me, that's interesting. What are you doing next?" Now, King would accept call-in questions on some nights. Callers are identified only by city and state province, generally not by name. Occasionally, surprise guests telephone the show and comment. Like governors, royalties, and celebrities, at times prank calls would come in. Frequent topics, including major election coverage. The program might center on political analysis and commentary, as the show's primetime airing generally coincides with the closing of polls in many states. Larry King would air generally near the end of each hour with various guests during election coverage while hosting a panel at the end of the night, which is midnight Eastern, the time slot usually the show's daily repeat outside of the election coverage. Now, one of King's recurring topics is the paranormal. Yay! A frequent guest is John Edward of the popular television show Crossing Over with John Edward. Edward comes on the show and gives callers a free chance to supposedly communicate via him with their dead loved ones. King also had alleged psychics such as Sylvia Brown and James Van Praagh on from time to time to do readings and discuss the future.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
King sometimes allows skeptics such as James Randi to debate the psychics. And in April of 2005 episode, King hosted a panel discussion regarding evangelical, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, and atheist views on the afterlife.
Interesting.
Yeah, King also had topics about UFOs, extraterrestrials, where he goes on.
Hey, at least he was like
willing to give the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't. He wasn't biased about. Oh, that. I don't believe in that.
Right.
He's like, I might not believe in that, but let me hear what you have to say anyway.
Yeah. Go ahead and give your 20 cents worth, and we'll see what we come up for change.
That's kind of cool. I wish more people were like that, because there are a lot of things that I don't believe in. But actually, there's not very much I don't believe in. Never mind.
He mentioned topics like UFOs, extraterrestrials, where he goes on to pit them one against the other, believers' views on the afterlife against skeptics. King is also frequently accused of pandering to sensationalist news stories. For instance, the death of Anna Nicole Smith took up much of King's shows after the event, causing the cancellation of numerous guests and interviewers that were already scheduled, most notably Christopher Hitchens, who had intended to discuss the Iraq situation. After the death of a prominent celebrity, King would either replay a recent program featuring said celebrity. For example, after actor Don Knotts' death in 2006, King replayed the interview with Knotts and Andy Griffith taken several months before, or will bring on family members and close confidants to the deceased to reminisce on the departed life.
I mean, I think that's kind of cool that this person just passed. Let's remember him by talking to his
family,
spouse, his child,
Yeah. Now, for the most part, each studio set featured identical colored dot map of the world in the background and one of King's trademarks, a vintage RCA microphone, as seen on the title card on his desk. The microphone is a prop, and King and his guests use lapel microphones. Now, notable episodes, again, June 3rd, 1985, Larry King Live debuted on CNN, and he spoke with then-Governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, as King's first guest. The legacy of Mario as the 52nd Governor of New York led to him being dubbed Hamlet on the Hudson. In 1990, Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam leader appeared as a guest for the first time on Larry King Live. The November 9th, 1993 debate between Ross Perot and Al Gore on the North American Free Trade Agreement was watched by 11.174 million households, the largest audience ever for a program on an ad-supported cable network, until the October 23, 2006 New York Giants-Dallas Cowboys game on ESPN's Monday Night Football. Hey, how many people want to watch football? Now, on October 7th, 1994, actor Marlon Brando was interviewed from his home to promote his autobiography, Songs My Mother Taught Me, and towards the end, Brando gave a kiss to King on the lips. On September 8th, 2000, Russian Premier Vladimir Putin was interviewed. In September 25th, 2006, Oprah Winfrey made her first endorsement of Barack Obama for President of the United States on Larry King Live. Two economists estimate that Winfrey's endorsement was worth over 1 million votes in the Democratic primary race, and without it, Obama would have lost the nomination. To mark the 20th anniversary of that show, ABC's Barbara Walters was a guest host and interviewed King on his reflections of his career. Now, to mark King's 50 years of broadcasting, Larry King Live had a week-long celebration that included a 2-hour CNN Presents special and an hour celebrity toast. The broadcast of the special week-long event was postponed due to a tragedy at Virginia Tech. XM satellite radio also featured a micro channel called Larry, which featured replays of the show along with interviews and new material from CNN anniversary shows. And on January 9th, 2007, a special edition of Larry King Live focused on the fallout of the murder-suicide of Chris Benoit was aired, with King interviewing WWE wrestlers Steve Blackman, John Cena, Ted DiBiase, Bret Hart, and Chris Jericho. 2007, on July 19th, the frail Tammy Faye Messner made her final appearance in Larry King Live to talk about the battle with lung and colon cancer, and she would die the following day. And September 7th, 2009, the first episode of High Definition was aired. On February 12th, 2010, during a discussion on Bill Clinton's latest heart procedure, Larry King revealed he had undergone a similar operation 5 weeks earlier. King had had a heart attack in 1987 and said that he had surgery to place stents in his coronary artery. December 16th, 2010, the final episode of Larry King Live aired on CNN, with Ryan Seacrest and Bill Maher acting as co-masters of ceremonies, and a surprise appearance by Barack Obama, then President, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, former President Bill Clinton, future President Donald Trump, and network news anchors Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, Katie Couric, and Brian Williams, among others.
My brain just went, those guys were still alive?
Yeah. King said his final show was not a goodbye, but rather a so long, as he plans to move on and pursue other things. The final show would attract an audience of 2.24 million people, more than triple the program's usual audience of 672,000 people. And as the ones mentioned, Geraldo Rivera was a guest host in '85. Ryan Seacrest was a host for a few shows. Nancy Grace sat as a guest host for a few shows, including that of the October 31st, 2003, regarding the Scott Peterson case. Kermit the Frog hosted the show as a April Fool's joke twice. Dan Rather hosted the show regarding the ongoing Iraq crisis. He also hosted the October 19, 2000 show with Jay Leno as a guest. In 1996, Newt Gingrich, at the time the Speaker of the House, hosted, with Jack Hanna serving as the guest. In 1998, Wolf Blitzer would host the show, the subject matter being the Matthew Shepard case. He also hosted episodes on March 1st and March 19th in 2008. In addition, he would host in March 22nd, 2010, and in August of 2010. In May 22nd, 2000, Kathy Lee Gifford would host, with Diane Sawyer and John Rivers were the guests. Roger Cossack interviewed John Ashcroft in 2000, who had just been defeated by Mel Carahan. Carahan, who died, was replaced by his wife Jean. So yeah, there never was really a shortage of people that felt, honored to, take over for a short time for the king. Bob Costas was called on to handle it. Pat Sajak, Bob Scheffler hosted a show about campaign finance reform with John McCain as a guest. Chris Pixley hosted the program instead of then regular guest host Bob Costas, who did not feel comfortable with the subject matter, the Natalie Holloway case. In September 12th, 2005, Dr. Phil hosted. The subject matter being the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. He again guest hosts on February 27th, 2009, interviewing various people considering the Sullivan octuplets. Comedian Bill Maher has taken up the duties as guest host. And in 2006, June 26th, former CNN, now Fox News Channel reporter John Roberts hosted. Mike Schreiber sat in as a guest host for a couple of shows in 2007. Star Jones hosted in April 2007. And late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel hosted.
Woo!
So yeah, they just had all sorts of different people that wanted to, rise up, take a shot at it for a week. Glenn Beck, John King, Dr. Drew, Harry Levin.
It's really going to be it's
got to be hard shoes to fill.
Because you have to have the right personality, right charisma, and maybe it may not be something that can be done again.
Yeah. And so, when he finally decided to go ahead and retire, it would have been hard shoes to fill. But I mean, they were able to put that one English fellow in, and his shows. It's not doing bad, but at the same time, it's just not Larry King.
Right.
So, but let them, try a few people to see how they come off. If they come across, warm as a snowflake or flaming unit. But, this was his anniversary of when the Larry King live experiment started, and he was able to do it for 20 years. So,
blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah. But this has been the Bearded Historian for the Bud Files. We will see you guys next week unless Sue throws me out in the garbage again.
I'm free outside.
Yay!
23 minutes and 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Beep.